ahead and get us started here by reminding everybody that we will be recording and we'll eliminate any personal health information. And I'm going to mute all, I guess, except for me right now. And maybe they'll be in here in just a few minutes.
Let's bow for prayer. To our Lord, we ask forgiveness for our sins. We thank you for our blessings. We pray for those whom are having health issues as well as those who have other needs and requests. We do stop at this point and have a special prayer for Steve and pray, God, that things will go well the next time and keep him safe and free from health issues until he can have a successful surgery. Thank you for the good blessings of births and all the wonderful blessings you give us. And may we as Rotarians feel responsibility as a club and as individual Rotarians for our community and our world. And may we live the four-way test every day. And it's in your name we pray.
Thank you, Dean. I see President-elect Jeff has joined us. Would you like to take over? We're up to our Sergeant at Arms.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I entered the code and then it flipped out of my system, so I had to come back to the office. But I'm here. So our Sergeant at Arms is
Me.
Is Rick?
No, it's
Dean. Dean, you've got all the duties this week, so this month. So if you would lead us in the pledge and the four-way test.
Okay. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. And the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Dean. All right. Do we have any announcements?
Steve Brown's raising his hand.
Jeff, I thank you guys. I just wanted to follow up, not about the surgery, but about Pancake Day, and let everybody know that the club did $1,000 sponsorship for Pancake Day, and it was in honor of Marianne, and she said in memory of Charlie. We had pre-packed 1,000 bags with pancake mix, syrup, and everything else, and hopefully all of our members came by and got their bags and had pancakes. And we gave out all but about 30 or 35 bags. And it turned out to be a very successful day. And we had a good many people join in on Zoom during that day. And it was kind of a bridge from not being able to meet for Pancake Day till next year. We'll be able to get back in person and do it again. But I want to thank the members profusely too for sponsoring that. We should, even though we didn't have anybody in line, I still think we'll probably make well over $10,000 for Pancake Day, even though we didn't have people in person. So thank you guys. And it was a great day as usual. Number 65.
That's great. And congratulations on figuring out a way to keep that going this year, because with all the challenges we face, y'all were very successful in doing a great job. And maybe next year we can all gather in the gym again. Yeah. And it's good to see you back. And I know we've already discussed it, but prayers and thoughts with your upcoming surgery. What else? Any other announcements anyone would like to share? Anything about any big ball games this weekend? Yes, sir.
Bill Owen reported in earlier this morning, and they delivered 260 meals this morning to students in Haywood County. I believe it was he and Charles Umberger and Dean. Were you part of that?
Yes.
So thanks to the three of them for their ongoing service.
Absolutely. You may have seen some of the emails. If you have received both of your vaccinations, please let our executive secretary know. We are doing good in reporting and getting vaccinated. I think I am still in group 6, which is right above anybody else that hasn't received a vaccination yet, but I am anxiously awaiting that. Any other announcements anyone would like to make?
I'll add one in on top of yours about the vaccinations. Just before Kathy and I went for our second one this week, a friend called and told us the nurse had said, be sure you keep your electrolytes up before you get your shot, and told us to eat a banana and drink 2 Gatorades. And we ate a banana and drank 1 Gatorade because I didn't think we were going to make it home on 2 Gatorades. But sure enough, we had neither of us nor our friends had any unpleasant side effects other than just a little soreness in the arm. And Kathy's arm, she said it only hurt when she touched it. And I said, well, quit touching it. And other than that, my soreness was gone by 9 a.m. the next morning. And that was true of our friends. So for those of you who've yet to get your shot, let me pass along that. I don't know if there's any scientific truth to it, but anecdotally, it was true. It worked.
Very good. Let's move on to Happy Dollars. Anyone, I assume with this big game coming up tomorrow, in schools that we all love, that someone might want to at least mention that for Happy Dollars.
If none of you watched the ball game Tuesday night, I'll put $5 in for Georgia Tech beating up on Duke.
Steve, you're back now.
How about that?
So, since you've got more experience than anybody in the course of Rotary, I will turn the reins back over to you.
Thank you, Jeff. Anybody else have Happy Dollars?
Steve, we had $20 given by Mary Ann earlier today.
Steve, I had successful surgery this week. It was very minor, but it didn't involve a knife and stitches. So, and I've got a spot on my head where the rain comes in, but it went well, and I think they got all of what they needed to get. So that's a good $5 Happy Dollar contribution.
Are you sure you and Gordon didn't butt heads?
Very possible.
I'll pledge $5 of humility in celebration of Duke University's attempt to defend its last place in the conference.
Oh, me. We've had some interesting developments over at Lake Junaluska the last little while. Some caught people by surprise. There was a lot of money involved in it. And the staff responded to that, and the board responded to it in a marvelous way. And friends stepped up. And I want to give $10 in appreciation of the way that the staff at Lake Junaluska carried us through this last little issue that it faced.
Gordon, for us that live at the lake, what was the issue?
The issue was had to do with the museum and the house next door, and it needed to be sold because it was owned not as, there was a lot that had to be straightened out legally, and we got good help on that, and Ken led a tremendous way at the lake, and I just thought that they handled that as expeditiously and with grace as much as anything I've seen them do. So I wanted to $10 happy dollars in appreciation for them.
Okay, thank you.
Good deal.
I just wanted to know if that $20 I gave was to beat Steve.
Which one of us?
I'm talking about Steve Brown.
Okay.
we'll have to wait and see till next Friday, I guess, won't we? It could totally turn around Duke's season tomorrow, even though they may finish towards the bottom of the pack. That if they were to miraculously somehow find a way to defeat the Tar Heels, then it probably would, make their season probably one of the most memorable they've had in many years.
Yeah.
Well, if we can beat next Saturday, why, it would be worth it. I would be glad to give the $20.
Me too.
Well, thank you, guys. If you've already done the invocation and the pledge and all that stuff, I guess we can turn it over to our program chairman for this month, who is Paula Barton.
Yes, thank you. Today we're welcoming Rob Heights, who is the town manager for Waynesville. Rob holds a BA in political science from UNCG and a master's in public administration and urban management from the American University in Washington, D.C. Also, he holds a general contractor's license. Good to know. He has worked as a project manager and building superintendent with Brown Investment Properties in Greensboro. In addition, he has served as town manager for Pittsburgh, Southport, Lumberton, and Statesville. His first municipal position was assistant to the town manager in Durham, North Carolina in 1977. Rob and his wife Lucy have a son, Ben, who is currently attending UNC. So let's give a warm Rotary welcome to Rob Heights.
Cool. I've given a lot of Rotary speeches over the years, but I've never done one over the computer. So I feel a little strange sitting down rather than standing and waving my arms and stuff. What I thought I'd do is have us recognize that this weekend it marks the 1-year anniversary of the beginning of the COVID issues. Bryant Moorhead and the other managers in the county and I spent a good part of that Saturday trying to figure out emergency declarations and following the CDC and the governor. And we had some exciting weeks when we had really no idea what this virus was going to be. And I'm mentioning that 1-year anniversary because the COVID crisis has pretty much dominated the local economy for the last year, and in a really bizarre way. We were in the middle of budget preparation between March and April statewide, and having the memory of the 2008 housing crisis still fresh in our minds, the economists that advise cities and counties believed very early on that we would see a recession as great or greater than we did in 2008. So they recommended that the cities of the state cut their sales tax by 25%. For Waynesville, that was a huge shock to our budget. So the third week of March, we froze all but essential spending and froze hiring and hunkered down for a long period of downturn. As it turned out, the economy and the public did quite the opposite from what our economists believed they would. Folks that were locked in their houses headed straight for Lowe's and bought lumber to do all the projects that they'd been holding off. People started cooking at home, and the grocery stores just went crazy with sales. So what happened by the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th, is rather than having a 25% reduction in sales tax, we ended up with a 6% increase over the year before. As we moved into the summer, we found out that people that might normally go to the big theme parks, Europe, cruises, decided to stay in North Carolina, and they flooded Waynesville and Haywood County with both day trips and renting hotel rooms after the governor removed the restriction on vacationers. So we had one of the best tourist seasons this last summer than we ever have. So in a bizarre way, the pandemic has increased our local economy considerably. And as many of you know, if you've talked to anybody in the real estate profession, there is a out-migration of folks from metropolitan areas to the Waynesville, Haywood County area, and they're buying up just about anything they can get their hands on. They're fleeing the areas of high density and moving to what they consider a more bucolic, healthier area. And as a result, we're seeing a slightly stronger real estate market than we did at the height of the building bubble in 2006 and 2007. And that has good and bad consequences. However, what we're seeing is for the municipal revenues, those sales taxes are continuing to go up. The desire to move to a more rural region is also causing the development community to look at Waynesville very favorably. And we currently have close to 600 rental properties that are committing to the town. And as you know, Plot Creek is already renting. We're waiting on the Bilo Center to break ground. That's 227 units. And we're quite proud of the fact that our affordable housing policy is attracting developers who specialize in affordable housing. And we, at this point, believe we're going to gain 229 affordable housing units, or we like to call it market workforce housing, because the target for these folks are school teachers and firefighters and police officers. And of course, that's part of the backbone of our community. So we don't see this as in the same way as the old 1960s low income communities. We see it as providing market rate housing for folks that otherwise couldn't afford to live in the Waynesville area. So we're really quite happy with our results. The town will probably contract for just under $500,000 in incentives to bring this workforce housing to the town. And that's mainly in the form of extending water and sewer to some of the building sites. One of the major projects that I've been doing is trying to save our poor sewer plant. Soon after I came, the state informed us that we would soon be placed under a mandate, a moratorium for any further sewer connections, which would shut down any growth in the town until we rebuilt the plant. Over the last 3 years, we've successfully negotiated a civil agreement called a special order of consent with the state that avoids a moratorium. It provides us with 155,000 gallons per day of sewer capacity over the next 4 years. We've also had to negotiate a loan for the sewer plant, and this is the largest civil project that the town has ever encountered. Its budget is $19,545,000, and we were very successful at negotiating a 26-year amortization period at 0% interest, and received $500,000 in loan forgiveness. So that helps soften the blow of having to borrow $19 million to build a sewer plant. Usually you don't get all the folks with the gold shovels and the hard hats at a sewer plant groundbreaking. So that's a lot of money to spend on something we desperately need, but folks just don't get excited about sewer treatment. Another project that we're getting started is looking for property to build a second fire station in the Hazelwood area. As you know, our fire department isn't simply involved with fire protection, and it is also a first response medical department. And about 70% of all of our calls coming out of our fire department are health related. All of our firefighters are registered EMTs, and what they do is they're first on the scene, and they do triage as the Haywood County ambulances come to help them out. So we're finding that our most popular fire station is the one in Hazelwood on Georgia Avenue. It was originally a volunteer station, and it has no bunk room. So with 4 firefighters on shift, we have to have 2 sleeping in an old office and 2 others sleep on either the couch or in a recliner, so that they can physically separate during the COVID period. If any of you have about 1.7 acres of land in Hazelwood, we'd love to talk to you. We've established a budget of about $400,000, and as you know, we've had no takers. That's such a pitiful amount to buy a 1.8 acre site. But if any of you want to sell us a couple acres in Hazelwood, we'd be happy to talk to you. If we were to buy the property, we would probably immediately start the design of that station, because we cannot purchase any new equipment or add any further firefighters until we can build that station to accommodate them. The town had its annual retreat yesterday, and they did a fantastic job of instructing the staff on projects they'd like to have. As I've told you just a few minutes ago, the town is really working towards providing workforce housing and low income housing, and Alderman Feichter suggested that we set aside a penny on the tax rate for a affordable housing trust fund, and we're going to work that type of project into our budget. As Jamie knows, we've been working with her on her project in Chestnut Park, and we've reached a great agreement with her to provide water to her new development. And we're real excited at those 10 houses that she'll be building. We also got the approval of the town board to get it to convert our recycling and our solid waste system to the rollout containers that Maggie Valley and Canton have. We're looking at 65-gallon containers. That's the same size as Maggie Valley has. And we hope that on garbage day, the town will look a little more orderly than it does right now. One of the things I noticed when I moved was the number of broken sanitation cans that are just left on the curb all over town. And we'd like to kind of clean that up and provide everybody with a rollout can that they could pull behind their house. So we'll be working on that over the next year and a half, and hopefully budget for it. The county has generously agreed to sponsor a $50,000 grant for us to pay for the recycling cans, and we're working with them on that project. What I thought I'd do right now is stop and see if there are any questions for you. I imagine everybody has a different thought.
Hi, this is Justin Powell. I was wondering about what's going on over at the old hospital, and specifically the annex building across the street.
Okay.
Yeah, my office is right next to that, the Edward Jones office. I was curious what's going in that annex building.
Okay. Well, since you're right next to it, I could tell you it's going to be a fat rendering plant. No, in all honesty, we jointly partnered with the county a number of years ago to convert the old hospital into 65 units of affordable housing for the elderly. And as Steve Brown knows, that was a project that was close to the heart of the Brown family, because Steve's dad practiced radiology there, and I guess the whole Brown family haunted the halls of that hospital over the years. So the plans for that hospital are really exciting. They're keeping the historic floor plan of the hallways and the doors and everything on the interior. But as you can tell, they've pretty much gutted the old one pane windows, and they're adding brand new heating and air systems and a new parking lots, and it's going to be a great facility. And I thought that was a great partnership between the city and the county and the private development company that's doing the work. Across the street, they are renovating the old Annex 2 to house the administrative staff of the Board of Education. They were originally in the original 1915 hospital that you see from Main Street. And with the renovation of the hospital, they got kicked out, and the county ceded them the building across the street. And so they're in the process of putting the school administration over there. Does that help?
It does. Thank you for the update. Appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. What else is on
Rob?
y'all's minds?
Rob, what's the status of the 3 street plans, Russ Avenue, South Main, and North Main through DOT?
We were on schedule to almost have a roundabout down at the old Delrays across from the watering hole. We were scheduled to construct that last April, and just about now we were planning on starting the Russ Avenue project, and right after that, the project to widen and improve South Main from Walmart all the way up to Legion Drive. However, somehow or another, DOT overspent its budget by about $4 billion, and they've had to retrench and cancel pretty much all the projects that aren't currently under contract and construction. They've also had to lay off a number of workers, and you will notice that there's more garbage on the state roads, and that this summer you'll notice they won't cut the right of way as often as they normally do. Again, they've got to make up a $4 billion loss. From my standpoint, when we have rock slides and natural disasters, the town dips into its savings account and helps the street department out. I don't understand why the General Assembly didn't reach into its rainy day fund to help the highway department with its $4 billion debt. That's what rainy day funds are for. The collapse of the mountain in the Pigeon Gorge cost a tremendous amount of money to repair, but the state didn't give DOT any money to repay them for that rock slide. I just don't understand that logic. But that's our projects have been set back a minimum of 4 years for Russ Avenue, and possibly 6 years for South Main, and they said they'll squeeze that new roundabout at Delrays in somewhere in between those projects. So I guess I'll be retired again by the time we see all of that road work started.
Thank you.
What else can I help you with? Y'all are an unusually quiet group. When we're together, I get plenty of questions.
Hey, Rob, I'll ask you a question. Give me an update on my favorite street in all of Haywood County, driving up and down Pigeon Street and driving down through Main Street of Waynesville in front of your offices. And I know that's I think it's a federal road. And I know you all have tried to throw. Oh, okay. So it's a state. So it's in that same $4 billion for being repaired, or is there any chance that they might be able to? I know that you all had to do some underground projects to figure out moving the sewer and water lines. Have we got any update on that, or where we're at with that?
Yeah, it's great you asked me that question, Steve, because I couldn't have answered it yesterday morning, but they gave us an update yesterday afternoon. We had done a considerable amount of work with the division engineering group to negotiate a rebuild of that street. We were going to lower the water line about 19 inches. And then DOT was going to grind the surface down and resurface it. They also were going to include in that project repaving Main Street and 276. And as you know, that street's deteriorating considerably. As of yesterday afternoon, they let us know that their promise to do that in the next fiscal year has been put off indefinitely. And that was done at the request of somebody in Raleigh. It was not our local representatives, our local engineers. It was someone in Raleigh decided that somebody else's street, I guess, was more important than Pigeon. We have not wanted to lower that water line until we knew the DOT was going to come right behind us, so we wouldn't have a permanent patch under all the way to up and down the road and just creating another huge pothole. So I'm not sure where we are on that project. The mayor's asked that we get our local representatives together and meet with the new division engineer and see if we could politically try to get that project going again.
Thank you.
Bob, this is Jack Ewing. Give us an update on frog level and the homeless issue.
Let me separate that into two answers. Thank you, Jack. In frog level, we're continuing to try to upgrade that community and bring it into the same fine condition as the downtown or Hazelwood. Yesterday, the town board approved a decorative wall to separate the parking lot from the railroads, and also to change the light fixtures out to match the light fixtures that are in the parking lot. As many of you know, we have a homeless task force that's headed by a professor from Western Carolina University named Amy Nugent. And they are moving towards probably recommending a continuum of care organization, which is the common structure for a community to leverage VA and HUD money. I think that they'll be looking at what's called a low barrier shelter for the homeless. And low barrier means that if a person is inebriated or appears to be under drugs, but is not violent, they may enter the structure. And another is that in that area, religious organizations may sponsor it and they may help volunteer, but they may not proselytize. So if we meet those two HUD standards, we can leverage, it's somewhere around $300,000 to $400,000 a year. But as you can imagine, the location of a shelter for the homeless is going to be one of the hottest political issues that the board will face probably this decade. So the planning is going well. The location of the shelter will be what I would say will create the concern we have. Does that help, Jack?
Great. Thank you very much, Rob.
Rob, could I ask a follow-up to that?
Of course.
If the town or county agrees to accept federal dollars for such an enterprise, does that open up residency issues where people could be recruited here, so to speak? Because I know where homeless folks could be recruited here, because I know that was a big issue with misinformation about pathways in particular. But well, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I sure do. And to be honest with you, I can't answer your question. I don't know whether a low barrier shelter is required to accept anyone that shows up at their door, or whether they can state that you have to have been in the area 30 days, for instance. One of our biggest issues is that we're getting people from California and Arizona and Florida and all over the nation, and we'll answer a call on a particular night, and we'll have a new person, and we'll say, we don't recognize you. Are you from Haywood County? And they say, no, we just got here from Missouri. We heard that this was a great place to hang out because you can get free meals and showers and really, sadly to say, the drugs are cheap in Haywood County. I know that's not something you want to necessarily put on a billboard, but among the homeless, they know that illicit drugs are plentiful and cheap. And as the courts have moved to make drug possession and sale of small amounts of drugs a victimless crime, they're small drug dealers that could be arrested twice in one night and wouldn't be placed in the jail. And that's not the jailer's fault. They are following the guidelines of the court.
Right. Well, I know from my own career experience in substance abuse services that on the statewide and regional level, folks used to come up from Charlotte to go to ADAC over in Black Mountain. And one of the concerns that my counterpart in Blue Ridge Mental Health at the time had was they didn't go back to Charlotte. And I saw a very similar situation up in Boone when they opened a methamphetamine treatment clinic, and Tennessee residents started coming in. And again, it's federally funded, so the restrictions on who could and could not be limited. And they too would not go back home. So the community ends up absorbing that situation. I'm trying to say that in a way that's not particularly judgmental, but I do understand why our local citizens are opposed to that. Look, I'll just put it that way.
I agree completely. One of the things that I've learned from the police is they know the local homeless. As you know so well, many of the homeless are schizophrenic or they have mental conditions, and we would love to have a place to send several of our chronic agitators, because they're not aware of what they're doing. They've got a mental disease. There is nowhere for our police department to send them in the state of North Carolina for treatment. And that's what they really need.
Right. That's an age-old problem.
Yes, sir.
Do we have other questions for Rob? Dean McMahon?
Rob, how does Haywood County or Waynesville, I guess is what you're more familiar with, compare with, say, the Southport, Pittsburgh, some of the other communities you mean, as far as homelessness goes, or just in general, but particularly the homeless? How would you compare those?
It's been a while since I've been in Southport. That was 1990. But we're probably comparable to almost any of the other towns with the issue of homelessness. Where I think we're different is that there's a subculture internet that is promoting the town of Waynesville as a great place to visit and to get free meals and get cheap drugs. And the other cities that I've been involved with don't get that kind of publicity. You know, the same reason that people are spending $500,000 to move to the Waynesville area are the reason that the homeless are moving. It's a beautiful area. I wish that there wasn't so much availability of drugs around here.
Thank you.
We have a voluntary drop off for prescription drugs right beside the police department. Kind of looks like a glorified mailbox. And about once a quarter, we send full of donated or turned over prescription drugs and other things to be incinerated. Most likely, I mean, if you think about those are the drugs that people have given us to get them out of their house, imagine how many drugs there are in the area that people are taking. The number of drugs that we're taking for incineration in Waynesville, a town of 10,000, is far in excess of the number of drugs that we had donated in Statesville, which is a town of 30,000.
Oh.
Mary Ann's been trying to raise her hand to get in here. Mary Ann, you want to unmute yourself?
This probably has nothing to do with Waynesville, but maybe it does. This is on 276, and it's what we used to call Siler Gap. I don't know what it's called now. It's the gap when you leave Waynesville on Pigeon Road. And when you go down the other side, the first curve you come to, there's a homeless group that's set up right on the road. And they're in a curve, which I think is a bad place. They're not very far from a house. And what jurisdiction would this be in? Is this Waynesville? It's about on the line.
No,
you know where I'm
they are
talking about?
Yes, ma'am. They are outside our jurisdiction. In some of that camp is within DOT right of way, and we've brought that to DOT's attention. I suspect that the county would be the only organization that would have jurisdiction. I can't tell you whether Haywood County has an ordinance that they've adopted that would address that type of encampment.
Well, it's really almost sitting on the road, and it's in that curve. I mean, they may get killed if somebody comes down that hill very fast. But I thought it's in the county. It's not in the city limits, but I know you have jurisdiction over a certain space after you leave the city.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. Our ordinance for cleaning up lots like that extends only within the city limits. It doesn't extend to our extraterritorial area.
Thank
the
you.
county has jurisdiction in our extraterritorial area as well, but their ordinances don't extend into our extraterritorial area. So that area is no person's land until either the city or the county accept the extraterritorial area for code enforcement.
There are two vehicles that sit there. One of them's got a big sign on the front that says Hell Wagon. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Leroy has a question.
Rob, two-part question. Number one, have you received anything regarding the reevaluation of
Yes, sir.
properties in Waynesville? And number two, what's going to be the stand of the board once that comes across in terms of the tax rate?
Well, I think they're only going to extend the revalues to retired opticians.
I would say since that I'm optometrist.
I'm sorry. I know that, doctor. What we have seen came in last Wednesday, and I really don't like to use broad terms because it scares everybody to death. But for all of the parcels that were revalued in Waynesville, the average increase was 25%. There are going to be people that get almost no revaluation increase, and there are going to be people that'll get 50%. As you know, we haven't had an increase in the value of the tax scroll since 2007 because of the Great Recession. So this is the first opportunity that the community's seen a measurable increase in their values. And so as you can tell, it's been a number of years. That's part of the reason for the increase. But if you have a home that you've purchased in the last 6 to 10 years, you may not see the increase in value that you would if you've owned your home 40 years. And the reason is because when you bought your home, it was closer to market value 5 or 6 years ago than if you bought your house 40 years ago and have even paid off the mortgage. So as the assessors explained it to me, you may see kind of a reverse of what you think would be natural, which is the most expensive houses would have the highest increase in value. In fact, it's the opposite, and that just has to do with the newest houses are also the most expensive. So somewhere between 5 or 6% and 50% is what you might expect. The older the house, the higher the revaluation, most likely. Now, Dr. Robertson, your question about what the town's position is, Dr. Robertson understands that, but the General Assembly requires that counties and municipalities provide 2 numbers for you in your next budget. One is called the tax neutral value, and then the other is the budget that's being recommended by the staff. There is a formula General Assembly's adopted that takes the new numbers and place it in the formula, and it will show you what the tax rate would be if we were tax neutral, if it was the same budget as with the new valuation plugged in. So our 49.57 cent on the $100 might be 37.49% on $100. I don't know. I haven't calculated it yet. So that's how tax neutrality works. If we keep the same tax rate as we have now, it would generate $1,200,000 of additional revenue. I don't think the town board is interested in an increase of that much. We do have a lot of deferred payments to make, buying equipment and things. And we're doing the first pace study we've done since 2020. Since the year 2000. So we do have a need for additional revenue. So I would suspect that the budget that we would present the board will have a lower tax rate than is currently being used, but it will be higher than tax neutral. And that'd be my prediction for you.
I heard somebody's cuckoo clock strike 2.
That's mine.
And it's actually 2:02. Any more questions for Rob? Since Justin, is that a question? Okay. Since I was late getting on, I hope someone recognized Philip Reed being with us, the district membership chairman. And Carol King joined us, I think, a little bit after I did. She's the district foundation representative. Glad to have them with us today.
Glad to visit with you. Thank you.
Were you introduced, Philip?
Several people said hello. I was on about 5 off, but I enjoyed catching up on everybody's medical situation and who's doing what and who's back from where. And really, it's a great club, a lot of energy. And District Governor Wachter couldn't make it, had a schedule conflict, invited me to stand in. So thank you for having me. Good club.
Thank you for joining us. And same with you, Carol.
Well, thank you so much. I enjoyed listening to Rob. It sounds like Buncombe County all over again. Same problems. We have lots of homelessness over here. Yeah. But, you know, it's really, you're doing great work in the county and all of you. Great club. And thank you for your recent contribution to polio, $1,800. Y'all are doing great this year. So thank you for all you're doing. If you ever want to hear about lots going on at the foundation, if you ever want to hear at the Evanston level, changes coming down the pike. If you ever want to hear about that, I'm glad to talk to you sometime. But thank you for all you're doing. Thank you for your contributions to the Rotary Foundation.
Thank you, Carol. Rob, one thing did occur to me as a question: how have other cities across North Carolina fared as well as we have because of our location and the tourist attraction? There are bound to be some cities that have really suffered with the changes in the economy and so forth with the pandemic.
Steve, you're absolutely right. The municipalities that are heavily dependent on tourism have fared quite well. Your coastal communities are faring as well as the mountain communities. Our fellow towns in Haywood County have fared as well as Waynesville. Those municipalities that are in the middle of the state, especially the agricultural region of the Piedmont and the eastern coast, didn't fare as well as we did because they don't have that influx of folks that are escaping the big city and trying to find a place to live or rent in the rural area. So yes, there's some folks that aren't doing as well. The metropolitan areas are doing great.
Very good. Well, if there are no more questions, and I can't think of another one, glad to see everybody, and sorry I was late again. I'll try not to do that next week. See you next Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Oh, my pleasure, Paula.